My Lords, very briefly, I rise rather unusually, I think, because I want to congratulate the Minister. I think this amendment is a very important one. But to note that I'm not going to congratulate the Shadow Minister, the Noble Lord Parkinson, only in this sense. He's been congratulated all night for Newcastle's win, and I do think, do me a favour, it's not him that did it. Anyway, that was just, I wanted to get that out and about. Anyway, right, at committee, and in fact, even at report, we've heard some really genuinely fine speeches, some of the best that I've heard since I've been in the Lords. And just today, the speeches by the Noble Lord Burt, and his colleagues, the speeches from the Noble Baroness Brady, and so many others, really were passionate, reasoned, oodles of evidence, so convincing. But sometimes the speeches have felt a bit more desperate, as though we were banging our head against a brick wall, tearing our hair out, with a kind of tone of, is anyone listening? Does the government understand the genuine concerns about this bill? This isn't just people messing around for sectarian reasons. So I do think it's important to acknowledge a couple of glimmers of hope, and the government's Amendment 18 from the other day, that the IFR needs to have regard before it imposes any restriction and must consider if it's necessary, and to consider whether a similar outcome could be achieved by less burdensome means, I do think actually defangs a lot of the things I'm worried about this bill. It gives at least the regulator pause. And yet still, some of us, after today's debate especially, are still very nervous about the unintended consequences, anticipate trouble ahead, and genuinely worry about what is going to happen to a game that has all of the jokes about Newcastle and its fans and what it means to them. Imagine that, a whole nation being disappointed by this bill, if it doesn't deliver as they think it will. And in fact, not only that, but damages the game that they are so passionate about. So, Amendment 90 is very important to assess the extent to which the objectives intended have been achieved is an important question. I think, though, that it is important that the government isn't just allowed to mark its own homework there, and so therefore it's one thing saying there's a review, but who the reviewers are in the form of that review does seem a rather key question. I think it really is incredible that on the face of the bill, we've actually got a review that's going to ask whether the objectives remain appropriate after a few years. In other words, they can change completely the objectives of the regulator, and what's more, it says that even if could those objectives be achieved more effectively in any other way? My answer now, before a review, is yes, which is why we don't really need the regulator in the first place. But anyway, at least someone is asking that question somewhere. And it does matter that I think it does show that the government and the minister have been listening. I do therefore think and urge the minister to listen now to the smaller amendments in this group that actually enhance what the government's trying to do with a little bit more detail. And therefore, will she now just accept this amendment as we finish report stage and say, yes, I've listened, we're not going to be an overbearing, overweening supporter of a regulator that will destroy football, we're going to do our best not to do that and accept these amendments?
My Lord,